enough of qualifying what I'm about to tell you. 2009, we went up there. We tried to go up with 3 of Ron's horses. We planned to stay for about 3 weeks, so we had a lot of gear and stuff we had to pack up. To get up to the top of this precipice, really, a pretty flat area on the top of the Sierras, above 10,000 feet, okay? We have to go about 8 to 10 miles up these very steep switchbacks that are about this steep, okay? With 3 horses loaded down with me and Ron, and a lot of other stuff. Okay. I took a lot of stuff Ron was complaining about. I took 4 cantaloupes. Right? Ron complained about that. Until something happened that he said, he finally came to me and says, I'm glad we took the cantaloupes. But we started up the switchbacks and everything seemed fine. We had tested the horses out. They were good mountain horses. This was not the problem. We got about halfway up the switchbacks and suddenly the horses began freaking out. My horse that I was on, I grew up with horses. I was able to hold on to my horse. Ron had his horse and he had the pack horse behind him. His horse throws him, seemingly breaking his wrist. And the horses charge straight down, not going back down the switchbacks, but just go straight down through every sort of timber and big root balls and everything you can imagine. We thought the horses were dead already. Ron gets up, I get off my horse, tie him off. Ron says, I think I broke my wrist. I said, well, that's it, Ron, we're going down. This is it, you know. We're not going up from here. He says, no, you stay here. I'm going to go back down and get the horses. I thought he was crazy. I tried to talk him out of it, but he's a tough old guy. So he did this. About 2 hours later, and I'm just going up and down the trail, because anybody that knows anything about horse, you can't just hold a horse on a switchback trail and expect him to stand there and be calm. So I'm going up and down the switchbacks, and you know, kind of back and forth, just to keep the horse occupied. My horse, named Mo. So Ron gets up there, back up, got things packed up, lost half our stuff, but he gets up there and he says, we got to keep going. It's okay. So we go up a little further. Again, something is freaking the horses out. These are seasoned horses. And again, Ron gets thrown off. This time both horses who are tied off together, Ron had tied one onto the other saddle, right? They don't run down the mountain, they tumble down the mountain. One over the other. And with that, I was certain, and Ron goes halfway down the first switchback with them. I thought certain Ron was probably dead and both horses. I held on to mine, barely. And I tie him off, I help Ron get up on the switchback, and he says, I got to go down and get the horses. I said, you're nuts. I said, no, we're done, man. We're going down. He says, Scott, we've invested too much money, too much time. We need to do this. We've got a duty to perform. This kind of an underlying thing that we've had kind of oppressing us on our shoulders, that this is a duty that we have to perform. So again, he goes down, finds a couple of things that he had not found before, like a couple of the sleeping bags that had been lost, had been taken and set out on one of the switchback trails. So he's collecting this stuff, and then he finds one of the cantaloupes that has been bitten in half, like an apple, and not thrown away into the bushes, but again laid right on the trail, the switchback trail. He can see the teeth marks in it. I told Dave this story yesterday. He said, why didn't you save it? You know, well, at that point, I just wanted to go down. You know, we weren't thinking of packing anything up or down. I wasn't, but Ron is insistent. We got to go up. Okay? So, again, he gets these horses somehow. So for another 2 or 3 hours, I am separated from him. We didn't think about it. I had both walkie-talkies. I'm shouting to him sporadically after about an hour and a half. Ron! He's shouting to me, and we could barely hear each other. Scott! So most of the time we couldn't even hear each other. We were that far apart. But eventually, after several hours, he makes it back up. It's starting to get dark already. He makes it back up to where I am. Actually, in that process, my horse had gotten so nervous that I felt I had to go up and get off the switchbacks. So this is what I did. And once I got to a certain point, and once things started to level out, I was on top. My horse I had been able to control. But at one point, I'd gotten off, and I wanted to I was in riding boots on a mountain, right? And I had a pair of hiking boots, so I got off, took my riding boots off and put on a pair of hiking boots. And I got up to lead my horse. The horse was frozen stiff. Almost like these classic pictures of a mule. Had his front feet frozen stiff like this. And he hadn't been like that all day. I said, no, come on, I'm pulling. And she would not budge. And she had she was focused on something over in the forest in one particular area and would not budge. And I could not move her for 7 to 8 minutes. Pushing her from the back, pulling her tail, pushing her forward. She would not budge. She would not take her mind off of this one spot in the forest. Finally, just as I was ready to give up, it's like something released her. She'd come out of it, and she turned around. She turned right around on the trail to head down the trail. Took about 5 steps, and I'm just thinking, great. We're on our way down. All of a sudden, she locked up again, going the other way, with her mind, her face, and her head focused on something in the forest, just beyond where I could see. And this again lasted for about another 7 to 10 minutes, me trying to push her back and forth. Again, the whole time, I'm worried, I don't know where Ron is. It's starting to get dark, really. Dusk is starting to, the sun is down, at least up in the mountains. It goes down early. So, I'm getting a little bit nervous. Finally, and it was as if something switched, turned a switch on in the horse. And she eased up, and suddenly there was no nervousness in her whatsoever. And we continued to trek down through the switchbacks. I'm wondering, can we open some of the curtains there, just let some of the light in? I'm getting spooked already. If my voice begins to sound nervous in any of these moments, you'll know why, hopefully. Because, so, anyway, finally after several hours, I couldn't hear Ron. I said, forget it, I'm going down the mountain, I'm going to find Ron, we're getting down off this mountain. I met him about 3/4 of the way down the switchbacks. Here he comes. He couldn't hardly even walk. We had already thought he'd had his arm in a sling. We'd already thought his wrist was broken, and he was wrangling 2 pack horses with one hand, and he's coming a trail like this. And I met him down. I said, Ron, we got to cut our losses. We're going down the mountain. And he says, Scott, I think you're right. I think now you're right. So we no sooner got him up on his horse and headed down the switchbacks when something spooked the horse again. Threw Ron. He was one switchback down from me. I saw him fall in between these rocks. If he'd hit one of the rocks, he would have been dead. I thought he was dead anyway. I ran down there, and he was motionless. And I knelt down and I said, oh my God, Ron, what am I going to do? How am I going to get Ron? I can't carry his body down out of here. How am I going to get the horses and Ron's body down off this mountain? I thought he was dead. And so I said, Ron, oh my God, man. I goes, I'll be back for you. I says, I'm going for help. I'll be back for you before morning. He goes, I'm okay. He did not want to be left up on that mountain by himself. So that night we got him down off the mountain with bad busted ribs, and what we found out was a really bad sprained wrist and not a broken wrist. But we got down, and we got down into the horse camp, and that's when weird things started to happen. Let me tell you quickly some of the stuff that they never, that the cowboys, or the hunters up there, Ron's original group, had an agreement never to talk about before we even got started, back 35 years ago. There were strange lights, little lights, about the size of a cantaloupe maybe, that would travel through the trees just beyond where you could say what they really were. This is in the top of the Sierra Mountains. There's nothing else up there, right? Some of these lights would then go up into, now does this sound like UFO crazy stuff? Yeah, but we've decided, forget it, we're going to tell the truth about it, all right? The lights would then go up above the trees and go over the next ridge. This happened numerous times in their time up there. They would be sleeping in the hutch, this very famous old, Sierra hutch that these hunters had. It looked like a beaver dam almost. And they would crawl in there, and that's where they would sleep. At night, they would wake up to very metallic tick-tock sounds. Just like a very loud clock. They wake up, who's has that watch? No, that's outside, that's out there. And it's way too loud to be any watch anyway. Tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. Very strange stuff. They would hear, they had big barrels, supply barrels that were chained to other trees outside the hutch. In the middle of the night, they would hear these barrels and the chains ripped off of the trees and thrown down the hill into, and they would hear them bang off of the rocks in and splash into the creek below. And in the morning, they would get up and nothing has been disturbed. This is beyond any, as he's explained this to me, it's beyond anything that I ever expected to get into. All right? Screams. There were nights that they don't talk about where they spent. Ron, this never happened to Ron, by the way. Otherwise, I think he would never be going back up there with me. But there were nights in the early years where the hunters inside spent all night locked and loaded, waiting for something to crash through the walls. Things were being flung at the hutch. They would come up and smack one, and the hutch was built pretty steadily. It's still there. It's made of big logs, but they had the feeling that whatever was out there could crash through it any time it wanted to. So they spent very sleepless nights ready to shoot. Screams, things thrown. And during all of those years, there were really only two sightings. One was by Ron's daughter, Rhonda, who was out one morning before any of the others were. She's a female, of course. They think that's why the being showed himself to her. And it just walked down, probably about from here to that wall back there, just stopped and sort of presented himself to her, like this. For about 10 seconds, they both froze. Rhonda looked at him, and then he walks off. He's gone. Right? Then another time, one of the other hunters, who, by the way, after this incident, never, ever went back up. He was out. He went down to the creek, was washing in his morning toiletries, right, washing his face, brushing his teeth, and looks up, and right across the street is an adolescent on his haunches, just looking at him like this. Very benign, non-threatening. Right, but of course this hunter, it just scared the hell out of him. He ran back up, got his stuff, and he left that day and would never go back up again. All right, back to us. We got down off the mountain that night. Ron was half dead. There was a camp guy there that had some Vicodin. They gave Ron. Ron, I don't think, could have survived that first night without some kind of painkillers. Of course, we had nothing. I think I had some aspirin. But there was a camp guy running a camp down the road that had heard about it and had brought us up some Vicodin. And so Ron was out. Ron was out pretty quick. In the middle of the night, we had the horses picketed, probably 30.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah.
Just to let you know, the electric's out all over Honolulu. The electric company's been notified.
Okay.
Who knows how long it's going to take.
All right. Well, I'll take a drink, so I'll delay my horses from shouting. But so that night, about 2 in the morning, we hear the horse trailer, something very big inside the horse trailer, and the only reason you couldn't hear this footsteps or anything. All you could do is hear the shock absorbers or the suspension on that horse trailer going. Something huge was in the horse trailer. Of course, neither one of us was going to move. He couldn't move, and I was mentally, I'd had a rough day too. So we listened to that. It eventually came out of there. The rest of the night went singing. We heard the horses neigh a couple times. They were about 20, 30 yards picketed away from our tent. That morning, before the sun had come up, I woke up. Ron I could see Ron open his eyes when I sat up. I was sitting up on a little blow-up mattress that I had, and he had another one there. I'm sitting up, kind of stretching, going, oh, I'm going to go check on the horses. It's okay. Just then, from the edge of the forest, where on the mountain side of us, where this is the side of the mountain that has no switchbacks. It goes straight up to where the camp is. It's the other side of the mountain where the switchbacks are. But the mountain is, you cannot get to the top from this side, and it is completely forested. And our tent was about from here to Farland from the edge. And in between was a dirt road that accessed this horse camp. And as I'm sitting there, just stretching, well, I hear very clearly from the edge of that forest, not farther away from Farland, Scott! I looked at Ron. I said, did you hear that? He says, yes, Ron. He said, what's Rhonda doing here so early? Because we had planned, Rhonda and Rhonda's mom and then Ron's granddaughter were supposed to meet us there later that day, right? To help me take care of him. And I said, hell no, there's no lights out there. There's no cars that came up here. No, there's nothing. I said, I'm going to go check it out, right? And but it was definitely, to us, it was a female voice, or something mimicking a female voice saying my name. Right now, why would that happen? Later on, we reasoned it out that the whole previous day was spent with me shouting. We were separated on that mountain. Me going, Ron! Nothing. And Ron, Scott! And this voice sounded exactly like Scott, like it was calling me from far away. Scott! Very clear. So I get out of the tent to go look around, and I see the horses. One of them is completely missing, and the other one, I see it laying straight on its back with its legs straight up in the air. And I froze. I goes, oh my God. And that was the horse that I felt had saved my life the day before. I goes, oh my God, Ron, Mo's dead. Because I'd been around horses all my life, and I had never seen a horse sitting right smack on its back with all its legs poking straight up in the air. Unless it was actually dead, lying in it, got stuck in a ditch, and it couldn't get out, and its legs were straight in the air. So I run out there, and Ron somehow gets up and stumbling out. And I run over there, and Mo is stuck, as if she had been picked up, turned upside down, and wedged in between two trees, with her buttocks up against one tree so tight that she could not struggle out of it. And her neck, her nose